kidding. Sorry. I'm getting professional. Everyone, welcome back to Cold Rush for a new edition.
Welcome back to Cold Rush. And we have some really exciting things to cover today. Number one, we're going to be talking about events that actually work. And as always, my name's Caspian, seller, former SDR, former SC, current AE, joined by my co-host as always, Eric, who I'll let introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Eric Wiegand, and I was 10 years in sales turned founder. So give you that perspective of boots on the ground, plus the pie in the sky system and scaling. And we have with us a special guest today, Alix. Alix, go ahead and tell them about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Delighted to be the guest of honor today to talk about events. So a little bit about myself. I actually worked with Caspian and Eric in my previous life when I lived in the US. I don't live there anymore, so excuse the thick French accent. But my background, I started as a BDR actually. And then I moved on to business development for partnerships. I did a little bit of AE work, and now I lead an amazing BDR team at Pivot. Very excited to be here.
Shout out to the Pivot BDR team.
Great team. Best.
Well, awesome. And you know, we were talking about some topics that we wanted to cover, and we were going through a few when we were planning this episode. And Alix had talked to me about these owned events, as it's called internally, you know, sales-led events, whatever. But can you kind of give us like a rundown of what that is? And, you know, we'll go through the process that you follow, but it seems pretty successful, and would love to know kind of your secret sauce.
Yeah, for sure. I think to give a bit of background to start with, there is really two types of events that we speak about on the sales side, I guess. There is the trade shows that everyone knows about, but then there is these events that you can create on the sales side and run alongside marketing, right? And so everyone knows about trade shows. That's why we're not going to focus on that today. But I think the sales-led events are a little bit less popular, maybe because it's heavy lift sometimes on the sales side, right?
Sure.
But they do bring a lot of value, I do think, especially in the way I want to conduct sales in a company that's way more like community-based and, you know, reputation and credibility and all of this. And these events really do help. So yeah, let's talk about this. But, you know, like to start with, let me just say, I see value in both types of events, right?
Sure.
Trade shows, they do bring a lot of value, like brand credibility, brand awareness. You get access to a whole lot of people that you wouldn't on a sales-led event side, right? But it can be hit or miss, right? Sometimes there is way more vendors than there is like participants, and you never know if the right people, the right ICP is going to come by your booth and all of these things. While the like sales-led events, you get to pick who comes, right? So it is, like I mentioned, heavy lift because you have to get the participants there. But once you get them in the room, you're surrounded by your top ICPs and in a very like small, intimate setting, which allows you to create way more meaningful connection than someone who just drops by your booth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, kind of the way that I think about it is marketing versus sales, right? These trade shows are kind of like your inbound leads. Who knows if they're qualified? Who knows if they're, you know, just there for a pair of socks and, you know, you're grabbing at their badge, just trying to scan it for marketing's sake. And then this sales led, this owned event is you're cherry picking these people. And we'll get to this, but like a mix of current customers and prospects. You know, sometimes it's just prospects. Sometimes it's other people in the industry, other sponsors. So there's a lot of really good ways to do this. I'm Caspian. For you, are you guys doing sales-led events right now, or have you had like success in the past with doing these?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think the number one, the venue and the feel of the event is so different. I think that trade shows, it can feel very like overly formal. To your point, sometimes those exchanges can be a little bit awkward. Like if you have, each company has to walk the line of, you know, having cool swag, but not swag that's so cool that people are only coming up to the booth for swag, right? It's like a little, or maybe you want that, but you have to be thoughtful then of like how you engage with prospects. I think with these sales-led events, it gives you the opportunity to get to know people better. So you may
Yeah.
get a smaller number of leads, but you are much more likely to get really high quality leads that actually generate revenue. At least that's been my experience. Alix, I'm curious, like in your, given your experience with both trade shows and sales-led events, how do you think about ROI, like one versus the other? Yeah, have you seen like a drastic difference from one versus the other?
I think it's I hate to give that answers, but it highly depends, right? It depends on so many things, and I know we'll kind of talk about everything like throughout the podcast, but it depends on the type of trade shows you go to. Like I said, it's hit or miss. Some might be amazing and bring great ROI, but you just never really know unless you've already gone. It's like a high known event, it's perfect for your ICP. So yeah, if you pick a very high quality trade show, you might see ROI. But even with trade shows, like really usually the ROI doesn't come like within a year, right? Like all of it can be like very long processes, and like trade shows are good to build credibility and bring awareness and to your brand and all of this, right? But like unless you find that perfect person who stops by your booth, has an active project that's going to be able to sign within 3 to 6 months, like that's unlikely, right? Like a lot of
Yeah.
times the ROI, you see it later down the line. It's kind of the same thing with the owned events, right? But in a different manner. To me, when I think about sales-led events, I think about building communities around your personas, around your brand, and getting people together, which has been a big topic post-COVID, right? Like
Yeah.
people wanting to get back together, doing things together, building this community. And so, like recently at my company, we did trade shows and owned events. We ended up booking way more qualified meetings after the owned events. But
Mhm.
again, it also depends on which event you do, right? Like some that have worked really well for us are the ones we host with current customers who are already in a existing community, because they are in this community and we feel with that it will bring with the community, and that will really help drive qualified pipeline and us. I'm having other items, where you're like building church with scratch, you have this at all. It's hard to put people in, and they usually use your competitors. It's much harder to like get ROI right away. But I think about like long-term ROI when it comes to events rather than like, instant ROI. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that makes a ton of sense. And like for all of these, you are playing that like long game. Because I think also at trade shows and at sales-led events, especially sales-led events, the people you're inviting are those big ticket deals, right?
Yeah.
So your sales cycle is by its very nature going to be long tailed. And that's just because like, you're not going to bring somebody to an event that's going to turn to be a, 3K deal. You want those 100 granders or,
Yeah,
depending on what you're
for sure.
selling, $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it really comes down to like, are you are you in charge of your own future by choosing the people who are attending, as in the
Yeah.
sales-led events? Or are you leaving it up to chance of like, hopefully somebody comes by my booth and hopefully I'm remembered
Yeah.
post event after they talk to 100 different companies? And like, am I going to make sure that something actually comes out of this? Right.
Yeah. And
But
I think like based on what you're saying, like sorry to interrupt, but there is a
no,
big thing that we should talk about too, in a way of like how do you organize the sales-led events when you haven't done them yet, when you don't have an existing community yet, right? Because you're thinking I'm in charge of my future, I'm going to put the right people in the room. But we all know as salespeople, it's not that easy to get those high people in the room, right? Like it's not that simple. And so like you have multiple ways of kind of starting off this community and starting off the sales-led events so that they can be successful from the scratch, even though they are only going to get easier with times. Like the first ones, you still want them to be successful. You're still putting an investment down and all of these things, right?
yeah,
What we've found to be working is, like I just mentioned previously, like doing it with a customers, an already existing client that has a community that we can leverage. And
Yeah.
also, other way to do this is to partner with companies. So fun fact, it's actually without us knowing, Caspian and I, when my company hosted a sales-led event in New York and in San Francisco, we partnered with Caspian's company, and I didn't even know Caspian, like we were not aware. So that's funny, but it's another way to actually like bring more people to these events. You got to find a partner that kind of is not a competitor, but kind of sells to the same people, so that
Yep.
you can have like leverage both like networks to get more people in the room and create more connections within these people as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, and that's kind of like a perfect segue of like, when it comes to like the tactical nature of this,
Yeah.
how are you actually like setting up these events? And, this can be from the perspective of somebody who's trying to do their first event, or somebody
Yeah.
who's just trying to, you know, get that community wheel going. They've had a
Yeah.
couple events, they haven't seen, the ROI come
Yeah.
through. They had a couple of people just cancel and the event was a total failure,
Yeah.
whatever. How do we get this to be successful?
So I think there is three big pillars that we can address one by one. Number one is before the event, how do you set it up and everything? What
Yeah.
happens during the event? And the third part is kind of linked to the first one, is how do you sell this internally, right? How do you get the buy-in from your company to like start creating these events?
Yeah.
If that works with you both, let's just start on like, how do we get those started and like, what is the prep beforehand?
Yeah.
I think the number one thing, and Caspian kind of touched upon it at the very beginning, is like the choice of the venue. I think like before even the venue comes in is like location. Where are your tier one prospects? Where is your top ICP located? And create an event in that city, right?
Yeah.
Like for tech selling companies, it's going to be San Francisco, it's going to be New York, it's going to be London, like those big hubs, tech hubs. Like number one, pick the city where it's going to happen. Number two, pick the venue. So it can be a whole lot of different things. And I think it will depend on your market, right? But what we found to be working is like high-end Michelin star dinner, just because it's places people don't usually go to. Like it
Yeah.
does bring in some interest. It's like, oh yeah, I'll go to a Michelin star dinner. Like,
Sure.
well, yeah,
Why
like,
not?
why not? And so we found that to be quite successful in multiple places, like the US, in Paris. There is also the date and time that kind of matters, right? There is some markets that are very open to doing things after work. Like I'm thinking France with like drinking wine, or I'm thinking like the US for a nice dinner. But in the UK, for example, lunches are better, typically. So,
Interesting.
you kind of have to study your market a little bit to understand what time of day do you want to gather people around it. Is it like an afternoon activity? Like in London, we did a paddle event, in the afternoon that worked quite well. I don't think it would work as well in the US, right? In the US, it's
Right.
more after work dinner, but you also have to understand if you do a dinner in France, it's more like 8 p.m. If you do one in the US, it's more like 6 p.m.,
Yeah.
right? So like you just have to adapt to your market when you pick that day and time on top of the venue, right? Obviously, avoid Monday evenings, or Friday evenings, right? Those are not great times. Like I think Wednesdays and Thursdays are probably best days all around, because it's kind of like towards the end of the week, but not yet the weekend. People are kind of winding down their week. They have a little more free time. Like to me, if I'm going to be attending a dinner for someone else, like I'll go on a Thursday, but I'm not going on a Friday, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to take that in consideration as well when you prepare these events.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And honestly, this reminds me of back, it was like one of maybe my like third job or something like that. I was selling board software at a company, and we had an event in San Francisco that was in board software. So we're selling to like C-level executives, we're
Yeah.
selling to board of directors, right? So you had to kind of make all your events pretty fancy. And so we had like a caviar and Dom Perignon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I wish I
Yeah.
would have been invited to that.
It, it was amazing, because like this is me in like my early 20s, and then
Yeah.
it's just like a bunch of like older people there. And so at the end of the night, it was like we like paid for everything. And so we had all these extra like bottles and stuff left over. And so like me and like my, poor self, I'm like, hey, can I take these back with me? So it was like a really successful event. And then I come home with like my backpack full of like Dom Perignon and like some caviar and a thing. I don't think I've had it sense because it's just like, I'm not going to go out and buy that. But, these
Yeah.
events can be fun for you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're having fun, that's like how you're building that community, right? It's not
Yeah.
this transactional thing.
Yeah,
It's
for sure. That actually reminds me of a funny story, if I may, just a funny story. And
for
that
sure.
also has to do with like the community-based thing. We were hosting a happy hour in Dublin like a few months back. And like, you prepay for a lot of things, a lot of cocktails, a lot of alcohol
Hmm.
and whatever. And us there at the event, we were sure like, okay, everything is already on the card. We're good. And the night was starting to get long. Like the happy hour started at 6 p.m. and at 11 p.m. it was still going. And I was like, everyone was having so much fun, and I was drinking lots of espresso martinis, which weren't the cocktails that were approved at first, but I was just like, whatever, it's an open bar, I'll get espresso
Yeah.
martinis. And so everyone was kind of doing the same. When I started coming in with the room with espresso martinis, they're like, where did you get those? I don't see them. So everyone started ordering them as well. And at 11 p.m., like my team and I, like, we're like, okay, we'll just leave the prospects here. They're having a good time. It's actually that community building, right? Like
Yeah.
they're all like from different companies. No one knows each other, but they're all drinking, having fun, whatever. We don't need to be here. And
Yep.
so my team at Pivot, we left, right? We went back to the hotel to sleep and whatnot. And like 2 hours later, we receive a text from the prospects that were still there. We're like, hey, they just brought us the bill. Like, is there a card on file? And so what we hadn't realized is that we hadn't left a card on file. We just had prepaid for things. But since, we ordered extra stuff, we left the prospects with the bill to pay. So not only is it nice because you get some free stuff, but don't forget to pay, okay? But it brought the community together. It's a funny story to tell.
That's exactly where you're like, yeah, absolutely. But I'll send you my card, but the DocuSign for the deal is
Yeah.
also here. So if you
Actually, that person who sent me that text that the bill needed to be paid is actually in a late stage of a deal right now. So
see,
it worked out.
boom, they
It
were
worked
just so
out.
relieved.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, sorry, I got us derailed, but it was a funny story.
No, I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, and I'm curious, Caspian, for you, like, what are some of the better events that you've been either a part of, invited to, as your company has done, or been invited to?
Yeah, no, I think Numeric does a really good job of doing events like this on a regular basis. And so I think what's nice is that I have used this both as an opportunity to kind of like source or re-engage old deals, but also to strengthen like mid or late stage deals, right? It can just be
Yeah,
like a really nice give. And it also gives you a chance to like meet people in person, right? So I think that there was one we did in the city at Che Fico, which again is like a restaurant that like I haven't been to before, wouldn't normally go to. There's a bunch of I've gone down to events in LA. I honestly can't remember the name of the place we went to, but it was like very beautiful, right? It's all places that when you tell people like, oh, we're having an event here, it's often people are like, oh, I've always wanted to go there, right? But
yeah,
again, unless it's like an anniversary or a really special occasion, you know, most people aren't necessarily gonna treat themselves to something like that, right? But they're
yeah,
open to going.
Yeah.
And it's made all the difference. Like there have been, again, mid late stage deals where I've been to, and you get a chance, even if you only connect with like two or three people and have like meaningful conversations with two or three people, if that helps get those two or three deals across the line, or at least like allow you to make a meaningful connection, because that's all that it's about, right?
yeah,
Like, is making that connection. No matter how that deal goes, then you actually have like real rapport with that person,
Yeah.
right? So,
hmm,
uh, I think meeting people in person can't be overstated, that
Yeah.
importance, right? Like, especially in the world of Zoom, it's
Yeah.
just when you get to shake someone's hand and like chat with them about non-work stuff, right? Like what their kids
Yeah.
do. And that's the thing is like, normally I think, and sometimes it depends on the event, like some events, there might be a point where it's like, okay, like, thanks for coming. Here's like a quick synopsis of Numeric. But I think normally it's best to just like keep things, not work related, right? And then what often happens is people at some point in the night, especially if they are newer prospects that maybe aren't a part of a deal, they'll be like, okay, so what does Numeric do? Right. But I think like that is nice. It's nice when you're asked that, but you're not going there like, hey, da 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 da. Here's like all the things about my company. Right. I will say it
100%.
is interesting to see different personas at events. I'm not sure, like Alix or Eric, if you've seen like different people, but some people will grill you like from the jump. It's like you shake their hand and it's like, okay, so what does it do? How's it different from this? Da-da-da. And then other
Yeah.
people are very happy to just have like I had one person, we had an amazing conversation. Like 3 hours. I like sent her a recipe for like making pizza with Greek yogurt. It was amazing. And then come to find out afterwards when at the end of the night, I was like, oh, it'd be great to like chat with you and tell you a little bit more about what we do here. Then found out that she had been like locked into a multi-year agreement with our competitors. So it's like some people are there, which is okay. It happens, right?
Which is kind of part of the preparation of those events, right? It's like
Yeah.
once,
Mhm.
and then there is the whole talk about how do you get them there and stuff. But once you have a list of the people going and you're working on the table plan and everything, it's like important to understand which ones are like people that are just there and nice to have because they have a good brand behind them or they're going to be part of the community, and which ones you want to get close to because they're a
Yeah.
top prospect, right?
Yeah.
And I think like that's what you're saying, Caspian, and that's super, super important to actually get ROI out of those events, is like understanding who you need to get close to in a genuine way, right? Like not faking it, like really building that relationship, but not wasting 3 hours talking to one person only that night who is someone who's like maybe going to be a friend, but not going to help like with your ROI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it comes to like every person you invite will have some functional role in how this plays, right? Like you'll invite current customers. So it's like if they're having a conversation, hear it from the horse's mouth, right?
Yeah.
This person is here to validate and refer essentially that the claims that we're making and the value we provide is true. Then you have your, maybe low level prospects who are there honestly for either a quick deal or like butts and seats, right? Like, hey, we know we're going to get some prospects here so that if the two people we really want to talk to don't show up, it's not an abject failure, right? Like it's basically like, let's just cover the cost of the dinner or like, let's offset the cost of the dinner. And then you have your well-researched, well built out whales that you're saying like, hey, this is going to make or break it, right? This is really the whole reason is these 2, 3, whatever amount of people who I really want to get to know. And I really want to have a good time, to learn a little bit, to make a good relationship, and then be able to like bring that to the table. But that's all well and good, right? Best laid plans just collapsed in more ways than one if you don't have those people there. So like I'm really interested and I think that this is like a lot of times the hardest part, especially for like the ICs, right? The salespeople and the SDRs that are driving this. How do you get those people to show up?
Yeah. I can speak from experience with what we've done here at Pivot for all the events that we've held. Um, I guess there is different ways, right? When if it's with a partnership with a client who has a community, they will invite just as many people as you are in a cold outbound motion, right?
Yep.
But for the sake of it, let's just take an example of like you're hosting it by yourself. You don't have a community built yet. There is multiple ways we go about it. Like for us as a sales org, we don't do cold calls. So we are going to go send like emails and send LinkedIn's
Yep.
to these people. And we're going to use, different people in our organization. It's not just going to be BDRs, right? We will take like the LinkedIn account of our CEO who is going to be sending the invites to top prospects, right?
Yeah. Sure.
They're going to get help from the VCs as well. Like, sometimes it's very good to leverage VCs for these events as well. We're going to send us, we sell to procurement and finance folks. So we'll ask our CFO to invite these people as well, because it builds this like peer-to-peer connection, right? So it's about crafting the right message, like kind of showing like, this is not going to be a sales event. This is a community-based event where you're going to be able to exchange with your peers from X and X company once you start getting attendance at a Michelin star dinner. No pitch deck, no nothing, just like a good dinner, good conversation, like no pressure,
Yep.
And little by little, you get the ball rolling that way. So you have your A's and your BDRs who work that market doing the outbound motion. You also have your CFO, your CEO. You have everyone that's relevant really like doing it. And the hardest are like the few first ones to like, commit to it. And after this, we can start name dropping, which really helps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like anything else, right? It's like any other form of selling. It's like your offer is, a cool place.
Yeah.
You have your social proof if you have that, these other attendees or these other sponsors or these other things,
Yeah.
like to have it in the room. And, in the past, when I've done invites, I've also kind of made it, either like time bound or, put some sort of scarcity as a mixture in there as well. Just something like, hey, like I only have 3 open slots left, but I really wanted you to be a part of it, right? And so using that, like kind of, hey, there's like this event is going. We would love you to be there as we're closing
Yeah.
off some of the slots and stuff. And so I think that's really good. I'm curious, Caspian, because you're the sales king here. When you're what's some of the copy that you would be using in order to invite people to these events?
Yeah, I mean, I think the copy definitely depends on, like, of course, your nature of the relationship with that prospect, right? Like,
Sure.
I personally, like as an AE, will send a lot of invites to people either in deals or re-engaging older deals.
Sure.
Normally it's our BDRs that are sending invites to like completely new people. What I
Hmm.
have done is, and I know we keep like dropping Easter eggs here. I'm a big believer in like strategic gifting for outbounding, stuff like that. What I
Hmm.
have done to engage with accounts is like, if there's someone who I've gifted, who's engaged, but I haven't met with, right? Who's been like, for one reason or another, just again, that meeting hasn't taken place. I have layered an event invite on as an additional give, and then they've accepted, and that has yielded, legit deals in
Yep.
kind of that cold outbound capacity. But normally my copy itself is pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, we're hosting an exclusive event for finance and accounting leaders at XYZ company, or sorry, at XYZ venue, and I wanted to personally invite you. It'll be a small group centered around da 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 da, right? Like a great food, great conversation. Would love to have you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very like low stakes. And so that's normally though I'm like layering in things about maybe what they said in a previous conversation or something like that. But
Yeah.
the copy itself I strive to keep pretty straightforward. Um, but I am just talking about like the events overall and like driving attendance. I am curious, especially given that we have someone who is legitimately French. What are some faux pas at these events? Like, what are things to definitely not do? Because I think by and large, I've been at like great events, which I feel very lucky to have done. But I have been to events for other companies where I've been like, oh my goodness, like that's I wouldn't have done that. I'm just curious, like, what are maybe not things that you've seen, but even things that you're like mindful of? Okay, we definitely need to make sure we're not doing this.
You don't mean about food or anything. You just mean in general, right?
Oh, I mean, it could be
I
food,
mean,
could be like
yeah.
however you want to interpret that.
I'm curious
There
what the
is
no
so
no
many.
food is.
I mean, there is so many like things that I really ensure that we don't do. It's like when you partner with a company, make sure they send people that are not going to be those like sleazy salespeople that are going to hammer the prospects that are there about their product.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
how we think about these events is like building relationships with people and community, and kind of to your point, Caspian, earlier, like not talk about our product, right? Talk
Yeah.
just like humans, regular humans, and it will come up eventually, right? And we will understand more about the nature of their business and their projects and all of these things because it will come like naturally. But so you don't want to partner with people that are going to ruin that for you at your events, right? So that's number one thing, like that I think of when we partner with people. I think a lot of people are tempted to do like, their CEO give a big talk about the company if they're coming to the event, or like do a slide deck or anything like this. It defeats the purpose the same way the sleazy salespeople do. And for me, those are big things that I want to make sure we avoid when we host these events. Another thing that kind of like is important too, and when I was hearing you, Caspian, earlier talk about your experience talking to like 3 people during the night, when you do those sit down dinners, sorry, make sure that you allow enough time ahead of sitting down for dinner so that you have time to mingle with
Yeah.
everyone that is there. Because even if you created such a perfect seating chart, you never know what's going to happen. Some people are going to know someone, they're going to want to move next to them. All of these things, you never know who you're going to be like sitting next to for 2-3 hours. So make sure that like you give an hour at least before dinner to mingle with everyone, get to shake everyone's hands, get to talk a little bit with everyone, and same with dessert. So what we do is we do like the drinks ahead of dinner, like sitting, like standing up and like with little appetizers being passed down. Then you sit down for like the main courses, and then you do a standing dessert thing so that people you haven't been able to mingle with during drinks, you get to talk to afterwards. And I think that's an important thing about these dinners as well.
I love that, because I think that the key there is that like it's about, and we've said this, but it's about those relationships. So just because somebody is the whale in the room, just as Caspian put an example up, you make this relationship, you get to the end and you find out they're locked up for the next 3 years, right? And so just because they're a whale doesn't mean that they're going to be the right one. And so like kind of sussing out those relationships to build that, and then have, a future in the 3 years later, you might have a sale available then. But just being able to connect with people, feel them out, and just get a lay of the land, I think is super important, because if you haven't landed the relationship, you probably won't be landing the sale when it comes to these sales led events. So having that opportunity to kind of like mix it up, I think is key to this. And I like the structure that you put, just kind of like open on both sides, and then, sit down and talk somebody's ear off for an hour while dinner is being served.
Yeah. You never know. Like people's passions can be freaking crazy. Like you never know who you're going to be sitting next to and hear about for an hour. Like
Yep.
I've had like people tell me about like goats for an hour and a half. And it was just like not what I was expecting, but it's fascinating, right? Everyone like brings in their own touch. And I think like that's the beautiful piece about making it not about your company and just making it about building a relationship with people.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there any, like, we went over kind of like faux pas.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you're doing like during or after the event?
Yeah.
Because obviously, follow up is important. Like,
Yeah.
walk me through that structure.
Yeah, so I think we've been a bit scattered, sorry, but I think like there is I think the last thing we talked about was like creating a good seating chart that like mixes prospects and clients and your own internal people quite well.
Yeah.
One thing that we ensure we do every time is hire a good photographer. So that you have a big library of very nice photos after the event that you can share on LinkedIn to like again open up this community, show people what you do, and also be able to send as a follow-up, because everyone loves these photos, right? I mean, you'll
Yeah.
have people that are like, where are these photos going, but most of the time they like the photos. So we do hire photographers. We also have we always prepare little treats for people to bring back home after the dinner. So we're French. Sometimes we hand out macarons or whatever, after the event. That's like
Classic.
branded. Yes, classic. But just a little something that they can go home with, and then
Yeah.
we don't attack right away. Attack in big quotation marks, but right away after the event, like let people breathe a little and then like send a very low pressure follow up. If your CEO attended or you send the invitation from, like make sure they are the ones also to follow up, because it has big value from like the founder of the company. But even for yourself who interacted with these people, like make sure to send a very personalized note, very low pressure, not asking for meetings or anything like this, but be like, really appreciated you coming by, like it was so nice to meet you in person, really enjoyed X or X conversation. We host these quite often. I would love for you to come next time around. And in the meantime, if you're, looking at a project for this or that, like I'd be more than happy to chat. But kind of leave it at that, so you have
Yep.
that little like CTA, but you keep it so low pressure that like people are super friendly to respond. And if they are interested, they will tell you, yes, I'd like a demo. But I think like the major thing about these events is not about getting a meeting right away or a deal right away. It's more like whenever there will be a project that comes up in the company, you are going to be top of mind,
Yep.
because you created this relationship, because you hosted these events that they loved and all of these things. they will know, okay, if I have a finance automation project or whatever, like who is the company I want to go up, like what vendor do I want? These guys, because
Yeah.
they like created such cool stuff for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, obviously, we've kind of hit a couple of topics. We've, talked about how the ROI can be if, the stars align and you have the right people, the right place. We've talked about kind of the follow up. I'd like to take a step back and say, because a lot of the listeners here are going to be ICs, whether they're like SDRs or AEs. And so maybe they don't necessarily have control of the budget, of the decision making, all that kind of stuff. I'm wondering how someone as an IC can sell this business case or sell this internally to leadership to really make it something that can become part of the process and the, company culture and strategy.
Caspian, do you want to take it first, or do you want me to jump on it?
Why don't you take it? And I can layer on.
I think there is a few things there. I think like first and foremost, like your management needs to be aligned with that vision, right? Of creating this community and wanting their brand to have a good reputation. And most of the management will want that, right? But you have little nuggets that also can help you like position these instead of like maybe doing more trade shows. How about we do a mix of both, right? And like
Yeah.
you will position, like sometimes trade shows cost you like 100, 200 grand, right? Like that's an enormous investment. While these dinners, like it will cost you way less, maybe 20, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but compared to 100 grand, right? Like where it's just a spray and pray approach where you hope you'll have relevant people come talk to you. At least there you have like, you can show a business case of like, okay, it's 5 times less expensive. We'll get to talk to like 20 people that are perfect ICP, right? We can expect like 2 or 3 meetings out of it. It's about building that case for yourself, right? And
Yeah.
but you have to ensure that like when you present this business case and go ahead, you're going to get your go ahead to try it out. Like you have to give it your all to make sure that like the people are going to be there, that you're going to put the right amount of pressure to have enough people there to make it somewhat of a success for a first one. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to always put it back into context that like the first ones are the hardest. It takes time to build a community. It takes time to build awareness and credibility around your brand. And like the third one is only going to be like so much better than the first, right?
Yeah. 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 It's 100% a compounding effect. And I think it just becomes difficult because a lot of leadership, and, I've seen this time and time again, will say, oh, well, we didn't get the positive outcome that we wanted, so we're going to scrap these events. Right. And so, just like anything else that you're doing, you need to understand as a leader that good things take time. Just like partnerships, just like referrals, just like anything, it takes time to build up the program. And just because you're not seeing immediate ROI doesn't mean that it's not going to work. I'm curious for you, Caspian. Have
Yeah.
you sold these? And it might not even just be an event, but I'm sure you've gone to bat for these, like even like one-on-one dinners or like a couple of little things that you're just taking clients out for drinks or coffee, whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean 100%. I think especially for like one-on-one dinners with bigger tier prospects, especially again if they're like later stage deals, that has been something that I've had to sell, and I think that the results, like the proof is in the pudding, right? I think that hopefully, people are normally understanding if ROI maybe isn't immediate or it's not like 100% success rate, but I think generally speaking, the ROI will make itself evident, right? Where it's like if you can, what's nice about any of these events, whether it's a one-on-one dinner or whether it's like a sales-owned event that's a little bit larger, is you're in control of the guest list, right? At trade shows, you're not, right? Like you have a general feel of like, okay, it's going to be these types of personas from these types of companies, but sometimes you like I mean, we've all seen this, right? But it's like you might be selling to, I'm making this up, but like if you're selling to salespeople and then you get someone from who's like a revenue analyst, right? Where it's like, okay, like you're not like, yes, you're at this event because other people on your team are here, but like you are not a qualified persona, right? And you
Uh-huh.
don't own budget, you're not an influencer, like no disrespect to revenue analysts, but you have control over the guest list. And that means that, the onus is on you to make sure that that event is impactful, but hopefully it can be pretty clear of like, oh my goodness, we closed a deal with XYZ company and this
Yeah.
person was a major contact, right? And again, even for selling the like smaller dinners, it's like, hey, it's late stage, we're head to head. Like, I really think, we're going to be in this town. I really think that this would drive like a meaningful outcome in this deal. And, fortunately that's been the case so far. So, I think that yes, the selling is just selling on the idea of the event, and I think the results follow. And people are normally pretty open to trying things.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had to like, I don't know, campaign for these things, or are there any like tips or tricks that you can share with, hey, I want to spend, X amount of dollars on a dinner with, even if it's just like a one-on-one, uh, any like insight that you can give for how to win that over with, the CRO or leadership or finance or whoever ends up being the stakeholder?
Yeah, normally I I normally focus much more on the outcomes than like the inputs, meaning that, normally over a certain like threshold of deal, it is like I'm making this up, but like let's say your deal is like 50K, even if again for like a smaller dinner, even if you're spending like a couple $1,000,
Yeah.
that ROI is still like even if you spent $5,000 on a now again, I'm not going to do that, but like even if I spent $5,000 on like a small intimate dinner for like me and one or two of my prospects, that still is a 10x ROI
Yeah.
if that if the outcome is large enough. And also, I think you can do other like smaller in-person things. Like I had a deal that I worked where their office is like a 5-minute walk from our office, and each time I went over, I did all my demos, all my meetings in person,
Yep.
except for maybe like a little bit of procurement at the end. And each time I brought like I would bring a different thing each time. I brought bagels, donuts, like these like Portuguese little thingies, and I joked with them
Everything
that
was
like
round.
this. What'd you say?
Everything was round.
Exactly, exactly.
Various round things.
And I joked with them that like it was coming out of their discount, right? Like the discount that I could give them at the end of the deal.
Yeah.
But like that, just like it breeds. My point is like that stuff was easy for me to campaign for and get approval for because we knew this deal was large enough that like whatever I spent on these pastries wasn't gonna, drive a meaningful thing. What's tough is when people don't eat the pastries in the meeting though. They'd always be like, "Oh, we loved your pastries," and I'm like, only one person ate them during the meeting. Everyone's so like, I have to do business that no one wants to eat them. So then I would always go back with like, I would take at least a couple donuts for myself once
Well,
I
that's
leave.
when you need to escalate it. You need to bring like a big bowl of soup, right? Or like
There we
ribs.
go.
Fries,
Just spoon it out
French
during the
fries.
There
meeting.
you go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Would you say French fries?
Yeah, the best ones.
Cool. Well, I mean, I think hopefully for the listeners out there, this was, I know for me, I learned a ton, but hopefully this was very impactful for folks listening and for anybody who is nervous to bring this up with their leader, or they're a leader trying to create this kind of, sales led event slash like build the community. I mean, we've been seeing some of the top brands out there. What they're doing best is creating that organic community that, just as the leaks you pointed out, is drinking past the time that the whole company has gone to bed, right? I think that's kind of the soft but important metric of, did this event land? Is like people want to stay there even after they're, feel like they're required. So um I think that we can wrap this up with our hot takes, and Alix, this will be your first go around. So I'd love to know what your hot take is, non-sales related.
For all the men listeners, skinny jeans are out. Do not wear skinny jeans anymore. Thank you.
How skinny is skinny?
Yeah.
If the fabric touches your thigh and touches way too like tight, it's a no.
Okay. So
And if it like wraps like way too tightly on your ankles, no.
gotcha. All right. So gigantic blown out jeans.
Exactly.
Yes,
Bell bottom.
clown pants.
I mean, you're
All right.
French,
It's a
so we
good
have to
hot
take your
take.
fashion advice as Americans. So.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, you can trust me on food and on fashion. So, for all the men listeners, no more skinny jeans. And
Yes.
all for the girls, no flats. Thank you.
All right, perfect. That's a bunch of hot takes. I have nothing to say on the flats because I wouldn't
They just,
know. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure. I guess all my shoes are flat. So it's yeah. What do
No,
you
but
got?
you know, I mean, like ballerina flats. Like, you know, those shoes that, you
Yes,
know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Eric
Caspian,
knows.
what you got?
Yeah, mine is also fashion related, and that is that I'm convinced that fingerless gloves are a scam, but a really successful scam. You know, like if the point of wearing gloves is to keep your hands and specifically your fingers warm, fingerless gloves I think are useless. I think people wear them for fashion, not because they actually do anything. And I think that they should be banned. That's my hot
What do
take.
you think about the fingerless gloves that have like the the floppy fingers that
That's
hang up?
if that gives you the ability to put them on. Fair.
Yeah.
And I think to be clear, sure, like do fingerless gloves keep the core of your hand warmer than no glove? Sure. But I think the whole point of gloves, like, why not go that small step further to just cover your fingers? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and it's also like your fingers, like the end of your fingers is what gets colder.
exactly.
So like,
That's exactly what I mean. That's why I think like fingerless gloves ludicrous. Now I do understand the difficulty of like it's tough to type with gloves, right? Like full
not
finger gloves,
anymore.
but yeah.
Very
But just
thin
get it.
gloves.
Yeah, I think that but that's what I mean. So fingerless gloves, I'm gonna do it like Alix does. Fingerless gloves are out. So yeah.
And I
Now,
was going to say, Caspian, who cares about like not being able to type with gloves? It's not like you answer your texts anyway.
Yeah. Well, wow. Wow.
got him.
It's because I don't have gloves. It's because I need gloves. My hands are
Well,
cold.
okay. So before I give mine, so if your fingers, right,
Yeah.
are to your hand as like your body is to your arms, what are your feelings on vests? Because
Vests, I think,
it would
are
essentially be
also
the same thing, right?
yeah, vests, I think it's funny because I used to be a big vest guy. I think
Mhm.
vests, like again, are vests more helpful than nothing? Sure. But I think that like generally, if like vests are only appropriate for very specific situations, right? Where it's like, I don't know, maybe if it's like 63 Fahrenheit, right? I think Celsius. Like if it's like 19 degrees, right? If it's like a little chilly, it's better than nothing, but a sweatshirt or a jacket is always going to be better. And my counter, right, if we're talking about like metaphors, is if fingerless gloves are a thing, why are toeless socks not a thing, right? It's the same thing, but for your feet, because that would be ridiculous, right? Because people know that's ridiculous. So
I don't know. I think it's $1
you can't
billion
argue with that logic.
idea right there.
Mic drop.
All right. So mine is, departure from fashion. But I was thinking about this the other day and I actually had a discussion on this. But I think the sense of smell is like the most useless sense. Like it's useful, but like if I had to lose one, I feel like sense of smell is what I would lose. Actually, my mom can't smell, so whatever. And it doesn't seem to have like affected her life in a major way. But if it was a super sense, right? You can either have like super hearing or super taste or like whatever. I think super smell would be the most useful one. So I was thinking about this, but I think it holds up. Like you could smell things from far away, or you can like detect various things. Like there was an article that dogs can tell how long you've been away by how your like the
How
scent
much smell
molecule.
of yourself is left in the house? Yeah.
Right, right. Like there seems to be these like wild practical applications if our smell was higher, but like human smell as just like where it is just isn't that useful.
Yeah, but like smell and taste is so like tightly
Again,
linked, you know? I
Right.
feel because I smell something, I know how it tastes, you know?
Sure.
And so I feel like the food is not as enjoyable if you can't smell it.
Right. But am I going to sacrifice like my vision for like smelling,
Yeah.
or like
No.
whatever. Like if I had to sacrifice
Yeah,
one,
fair
it's
enough.
like, yeah. Well,
Fair.
Yeah.
that's what I got.
That's I like that. I've actually spoken about this before. Like I've had conversations around this, and I think I settled on smell as well. Like if you're distinguishing smell from taste, then yeah, I would lose
right.
smell in a heartbeat. The like superpower, I'd be very like that's an interesting one. Yeah, taste would not be very helpful. Just going around
Vision
like,
could be cool.
licking things. You say what?
Vision
Vision?
could be cool.
Vision could be cool, and
But
hearing
is
could
it
be
just
cool
you see
too.
things farther away?
Why do you
Like,
want to act like a dog and smell like a piece of bread that's like a mile away?
Because I guess like what's the practical application, right? Like if I could smell people, like oh no, there's someone in my house, like I can't, I I don't need like to see
Well,
10
then you
miles
hear
away.
them. Then
Huh?
yeah,
hear
super
them.
hearing, you could have heard them when they were like 3
You're
miles
gonna
away.
sniff. You're gonna like. There is someone in my house.
Yeah.
Like,
And they've been away for 20 minutes.
that's ridiculous.
And
All right. Well, like there's like rats that smell like cancer in people.
whoa.
There's like, like
But knowing you, you wouldn't put that to good use.
would I put any of this to good use? Like realistically.
No. So no superpower for you.
All right. Well, I think we got about all we can get from this episode. Alix, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, folks have learned a lot, have something to take away, and can, start getting their communities, start getting their events running. But, this has been our most recent episode. I don't think we have, because we're looking for another guest. So I don't have a teaser for the next episode. But, definitely like and subscribe, whatever. Share with a friend who needs to set up some events, or more, I would say more aptly, share this with your leader to get them to push them over the edge to do more sales-led events. You guys, take it away here.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. Can't wait to be back.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. I'll see you later.
Bye.